Good morning, our favorite humans. Welcome to Bronx Tales with your host that thinks he's a cat, Bronxy B, and me. I'm Logan. Thank you for being here. I'm just going to read you the prologue and chapters 1 through 3 in the book that James Patterson and Vicky wrote. It is called The IDAHO4, an American Tragedy, as I'm sure you guys have seen already. I tried to record this last night, but it did not save. So we got up early to record it for you this morning. So that is it. We will start right now. The prologue has 3 tiny chapters in it before it starts the actual book. So here is chapter 1 of the prologue. Wenatchee, Washington, November 13th, 2022. Chief, we've got a bad situation. James Fry, the God-fearing chief of the Moscow, Idaho Police Department, picks up the call from Captain Tyson Barrett, informing him of a mass homicide. 4 murders at 1122 King Road. Barrett has the inside track. Ava and Emily, 2 of the kids in the group sitting outside the rental house, work at the football stadium. The Kibbe Dome is under Barrett's purview, so he knows them well. It's Sunday, and Fry is about an hour into the 4-hour drive back from an overnight visit with a friend in Wenatchee, Washington, 150 miles east of Seattle. Whatever has happened, whoever the victims are, it already feels too close for comfort. In the passenger seat listening is Julie Fry. The chief's whip-smart wife of 30-odd years also happens to be the newly elected Latah County Clerk. Chief Fry will later say that he should have let Julie drive, but now it's all he can do to absorb what Barrett tells him. 4 young people, likely UI students, stabbed in their bedrooms, in their beds, in a residence that's part of a large cluster of student housing right on campus line, and no one heard a thing? Fry's put in 30 years on the force. The common assumption about small-town police chiefs is that they have no experience with murder, but this is not Fry's first brush with homicides on campus. In 2007, when he was still a sergeant, he worked on 3 homicides in just 1 year. One involved a University of Idaho student, David Boss, who was shot by a former classmate. In 2011, as a lieutenant, Fry oversaw the investigation of another university tragedy. That summer, psychology professor Ernesto Bustamante, who had a history of mental illness, fatally shot Katie Benoit, a 22-year-old graduate student he'd previously dated, outside of her home, then later turned the gun on himself. Even so, Fry already knows that this one is different. He knows this is going to test the department in an unprecedented way. He also knows that this is too big for Moscow to handle without help. In a rural area like this, there's a general view that it's all hands on deck. He's going to need the support from the state, probably the FBI, but first thing is first. It's not his job to run point at the scene of the crime. When he was a detective, which was not so long ago, he headed up investigations, but now he's chief, and chiefs who get in the way of their teams can really screw things up. His role today is to stay in close touch with his officers, provide whatever support is needed. Part of leading, Fry believes, is trusting and delegating, but Fry knows that when adrenaline is running high, anyone can forget things, so he rattles off a punch list to Tyson Barrett, realizing from experience that his captain is out in front of him. "Have you reached Bill?" he asks, referring to veteran county prosecutor Bill Thompson, who has never lost a case. In their parallel careers, the chief and the prosecutor have worked every crime scene together. They meet every single day at 8 a.m. Fry's belief in Thompson, the only prosecutor in Idaho who has ever won a murder conviction in the absence of a dead body, is unwavering. On his way, Barrett says, "Forensics?" The 2 forensics officers, Lawrence Mowry and Andrew Fox, are Fry's appointments. State? A scene as big as this needs help from the Idaho State Police forensics teams, based in Lewiston, about 30 miles south of Moscow. On their way. "Who have you got there?" Barrett tells him that Mitch Nunez was the first officer on scene. And at this, Fry blanches. "My heart broke," he said later. His 37-man department runs like a family. 22-year-old Nunez is like a son to Fry, a baby. He knows that his youngest officer will never be able to erase from his mind the horrific crime scene that has just witnessed, that he will be forever altered, and Fry will need to find Nunez and his wife the resources to cope with the trauma. Mental health is not something that was discussed when Fry was a rookie, and he believes that was a mistake. PTSD, according to Fry's longtime ride-along partner and best friend, Paul Kwiatkowski, lingers as he sorts through memories that won't dim. Fry is going to take care of his young officers and their families, make sure they feel supported. Speaking of, has the university been notified? Affirmative. Where's Brett Payne? 2 months prior, Fry promoted Brett Payne, a 32-year-old cop and military veteran whom he'd hired in 2020, to detective corporal, a new position in the department that Fry created for a reason. Ordinarily, detectives are the higher rank of sergeant, but Fry had been faced with a specific set of challenges. He had to run a small department at a time when applications for jobs in law enforcement were dwindling. This was shortly after an officer in Minnesota had been convicted in the death of George Floyd. The chief decided to free up some of the sergeants to learn the administrative part of police work, how to actually run a department, pay bills, budget, and so forth. Which means today, Fry realizes Payne will be the one to lead this investigation, organize the department into teams. Talk about diving into the deep end. Tyson responds that yes, Payne is on his way to the crime scene. He'll get there at around 4 p.m., which will be ahead of Fry. He presses harder on the gas and dials a number. Rand, he says into the phone to Dr. Rand Walker, a local therapist who has counseled his officers before. I need you to be on standby. The rest of the drive is a blur of staccato calls. Chief Gary Jenkins, the head of the Washington State University Police over in Pullman and the former chief of the Pullman PD, phones. Do you need backup from us? Jenkins asks. The two departments often tag team. Moscow's last convicted murderer, John Lee, had in fact been caught on the run by the officers in Pullman. But Fry is cautious. In 2015, they knew who the murderer was. This time, they have no idea. Fry is aware of the importance of locking down an investigation, keeping information on a need-to-know basis to stop leaks that could jeopardize it. He and Bill Thompson are completely in sync on this. Thompson never speaks to anyone about an investigation until he gets to sentencing, and even then, he keeps it short. And there are too many unanswered questions right now. It's not safe or prudent for Fry to involve another team. Not yet, Fry tells Jenkins. I'll keep you posted. Barrett shared with Fry that a knife sheath was found in one of the rooms. It's imperative this doesn't get out. Somewhere there's a maniacal murderer on the loose who is almost certainly watching their every move. Who in God's name could have done this? Fry wonders, and again he presses harder on the gas. One good thing about being the police chief is that no one is likely to arrest him for speeding. Prologue Chapter 2, 1 hour later. The notifications about death are the thing that Chief Fry dreads most in his job. It takes seconds to give or receive the news, yet the needlessly lost lives haunt his dreams. He can recall each and every one as he hurtles toward Moscow. Take January 22nd, 2013, nearly a decade ago. He'd been a lieutenant. A couple had shown up at the station, wondering anxiously where their son was. A Latah County Sheriff's deputy had found a body the next day and called it in. The corpse had been on the ground for 2 days. It looked like a kid, a college student named Joseph Wiedrich, had frozen to death. He'd been intoxicated. The department spread out trying to piece together what had happened, and Fry became the point person for the kids' parents. Notifying parents of the loss of their children is something you never get better at. And tragically, student deaths are not that unusual. There's one practically every semester. Typically, it's the result of a car accident that occurs during the long drive most of the kids take to cross the state in treacherous conditions in winter. One year, Fry taught a class up at the university, and right before Thanksgiving break, he told his students, "Remember, drive extra slow. Your parents don't care what time you get there, they just want you there." Fry may be a cop, but he's also a husband and the father of 4 kids, 3 daughters, and a son. I understand what that's like as a parent to drop off a child, he says. He knows that parents expect their kids to be safe in college. And he also knows that sometimes they aren't. The tragedy with young Joseph was a double whammy for Fry because it seemed like no one in the community helped the kid out by notifying law enforcement that he was in trouble on the night he ended up dying. His body was found 2 miles from town. 2 miles. Fry knew that someone must have spotted the drunk kid while he was walking. Sure enough, when all the details about Joseph's final night were in, and when Fry put together a map for Joseph's mom, Michelle, it emerged that Joseph walked 8 miles before laying down to rest one last time. Various people in the town did see the kid. They could have helped him by calling MPD when he stumbled into their backyards or, in a few cases, even into their homes. Instead, they just watched him or sent him on his way. One lady later said, "I just didn't want to get him in trouble." Joseph would have been in trouble. He would have been locked up and most likely given a criminal citation, but nothing more. Fry tells everyone he works with that the key to serving the community is respect, respect, respect. You ever see the movie Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze? He'll ask people. If they haven't, he tells them to watch it. The movie's message is his message, the one he instills in his officers. Be nice, be nice, be nice. And until it's time not to be nice, be nice. If you treat people with respect, even when you arrest them, they'll thank you. But in 2013, the town's residents seemed unaware of the chief's message of police compassion. The tragic story of Joseph that he put together went something like this. On January 20th at 2 a.m., a Moscow woman hears a noise downstairs. She goes to take a look. Is it an animal? It's a human, a drunk human. An 18-year-old man, clearly disoriented, smelling of alcohol, his blonde hair disheveled, is stumbling around in her basement. She doesn't know how he got in. He's lost. Safe, safe, he mumbles to her. It's clear he wants to stay and sleep it off, but she asks him to leave. He'll figure it out. No need to call the police. It's black outside. Snowdrifts piled high, but students often wander drunk, a nuisance with their noise and their parties. Joseph shuffles off down Highland Drive. 3 a.m. Bang, bang! He's knocking on another door, this one on Mountain View Road. The owner looks through the window. "Go home," he says to the kid. Again, there's no call to the police. The townsfolk think they're protecting him, but it's a mistake. 4 a.m. Bang, bang! A third homeowner looks out the window, shrugs, and goes back to bed. Joseph wanders away. He's trying to get back to his dorm, but has no idea where he's headed. Somehow he ends up near Paradise Creek, 2 miles north of the city. Joseph trips and falls. He hits the frozen creek. His body sinks like a dead weight through the ice into the frigid waters. He fights. He climbs out. He crawls under a nearby bridge and rests. And he rests. His body is discovered by police 2 days later. It emerges that Joseph had drunk too much at a Saturday night party given by the Sigma Alpha Epsilon fraternity. Fry doesn't like to toot his own horn, but he reckons that since he became chief in 2016, attitudes in the town have changed about a lot of things, including over-the-top college drinking. He isn't stupid enough to think you can stop college kids from drinking, but he believes you can take steps to keep it in check. You can, for example, go as he does, 2 rows hours, look at the keg list and figure out where each keg is. If a keg is somewhere it isn't supposed to be, if, say, it's with a group of underage kids, you take it away. Nicely, but that's what you do. One time, Fry and the guys took 42 cases of Keystone Light away from a fraternity party because they saw a 19-year-old pushing the cart. So, yeah, you've got to teach them that the law is the law. If Fry and his ride-along partner, Captain Paul Kwiatkowski, had been called to deal with drunk Joseph, sure, they might have locked him up, but he'd still had his life ahead of him. Fry is upset that people in Moscow don't get that. "What else can we do?" he asked Paul one time. "Keep going," his friend and colleague said. "Don't give up." The 2 guys had looked at the framed questions on Fry's wall. The chief knows them by heart, but he still reads them every day. "And the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds." The second is from a Theodore Roosevelt speech on citizenship. In April 1910, After finishing his second term as U.S. president, Roosevelt delivered the Man in the Arena speech at the Sorbonne in Paris. He was on his way to Oslo, Norway, to officially accept the Nobel Peace Prize, which he had been awarded in 1906 for his efforts to end the Russo-Japanese War. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Fry thinks about those words, who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. So as the chief reaches the city's outskirts, he takes a deep breath. He knows that with this startlingly awful and strange case, now more than ever he needs to get a critical message through. The Moscow police, on his watch, are to be trusted, not feared. Prologue Chapter 3. 1122 King Road, Moscow, Idaho, 2 hours earlier. Officer Nunez radios the police station and reaches Sergeant Shane Gunderson, who's been taking advantage of his quiet Sunday morning shift to plan a hiking trip to Mount Bora on the other side of the state. "This is serious," Nunez tells him. Gunderson snaps out of his boredom, leaps into his car, and heads for King Road. As he rides, he phones Tyson Barrett. His boss, the commander of the campus police, is on call that day. Barrett says he already sent patrol officers Smith and Warner to join Nunez, who's taping off the area around the house. So Nunez taped off the area where he didn't see the bloody glove. Barrett knows what to do, and not just because he's an experienced cop. He was the sergeant assigned to Moscow's previous famous homicide, the case of John Lee, a mentally ill man who went on a shooting spree in January 2015, killing 3 people, including his adoptive mother. But Barrett has another advantage here. He's a vandal. The name of the school's athletic teams, a nickname that came from a long ago U of I basketball team said to have vandalized the opponents. He knows the school, the students, the faculty, the administration, the culture. He's been attached to the university on and off for years. He worked it years ago as a sergeant. His daughter is a student. When Barrett arrives, he recognizes Ava Wood, a neighbor who rushed out with blankets for the group of students sitting in front of the house at 1122 King Road. "Do you know the people inside, Ava?" Barrett asks. She nods, and Barrett looks at her, eyes filled with sympathy. And then he turns to the front door. All those years of training and experience kick in. He runs through his checklist. 1. Clear the residence and run tape around the perimeter. Check. 2. Call for medical assistance if needed. There is no need. 3. Secure the scene. Check. Nunez has put up the tape. Barrett assigns 1 cop to watch the front of the house and another the back. 4. Call in the detectives who will lead the investigation. There will be 5 detectives. John Lawrence, who is about to retire, Danny Vargas, Brett Payne, Detective Corporal, and forensics detectives Lawrence Mowry and Andrew Fox. Barrett knows it's important to call only those cops who will play essential roles. With each body comes the risk of contaminating evidence. 5. Notify the police. 6. Notify the county prosecutor, Bill Thompson. 7. Notify the other Moscow PD captains, Anthony Dollinger and Roger Lanier. 8. Call the sergeant running the Idaho State Police detectives. Moscow is going to need the state police's forensic team at a bare minimum. This is too big for MPD to handle alone. State has a forensics lab. Moscow does not. 9. Call the university president and dean of students. 10. Call the coroner, but not until all the evidence is collected. Someone might accidentally move something and contaminate the scene. 11. Notify the public if there is a threat. Barrett knows not just from his years of experience, but from common sense that the probability of some random stranger knifing 4 people to death in their bedrooms is almost nil. There's a connection somewhere between whoever did this and at least one of the victims. There always is. That's what the police are going to have to find. The patrol officers correctly begin with the people in front of them. Why is this young student, Hunter Johnson, holding a knife? What happened here? Hunter sits with the patrol officers and tells them what happened as best as he knows. They let him go. Sirens start to wail. But the first emergency vehicle that arrives is unnecessary. It's the volunteer ambulance, the medical responders to the 911 call. It stays a couple of minutes and then, at the cop's request, it leaves. It's much too late for anyone to need medical attention. That was the prologue. Now we'll start the actual real chapters of the book. This says Part 1, The Innocents. Chapter 1, Moscow, Idaho, August 18th, 2019. It's bid day at the University of Idaho. Kaylee Gonsalves and Maddie Mogan chose the University of Idaho precisely because of its strong Greek life. Nearly 1/4 of UI students take part. The two look alike, blonde, Maddie is natural, Kaylee's is dyed. Best friends, both freshmen, take their seats in the auditorium. They glance nervously at the throng of women packed around them like canned sardines at clutching envelopes. Inside each is the name of the sorority the student has gotten into. Kaylee's and Maddie's top choice is Alpha Phi, or A Phi, as it's known, pronounced A Phi. As one of its members described the sorority, it's a place for blondes, for homecoming queens, for popular girls, leaders, girls who like to party and to get ready to party. Last night, to help the newcomers make up their minds, the sororities invited the women to so-called preference ceremonies at their top choices. At A Phi, one of the sisters told a sad but moving story. Her boyfriend, a football star, had tragically lost his battle with cancer, and the support of the house was what got her through. Both girls know that Greek life isn't just about parties. The friendships and networks and bonds formed in each house are an important factor in most students' social and later professional lives. Maddie wants a career in marketing, Kaylee in IT. Kaylee and Maddie drove to campus together and spent the past few days rushing together, and the past 6 years doing everything together. Maddie has been entering Kaylee's house without knocking, just like she's part of Kaylee's noisy, happy, hectic, vast family since they were both 12 years old. Maddie is more of a girly girl than Kaylee, who used to be a bit of a tomboy. Kaylee is more of an extrovert than Maddie and maybe more of a hustler. She's had to be to get what she wants, given the size of the Gonsalves household. Kaylee has 4 siblings. Maddie is an only child, and her home, by contrast, is quiet. Since their early teens, these two shared summer boat rides on the lake in Coeur d'Alene, winter bathing in the nearby hot springs, trips to Seattle, beach vacations in Puerto Rico and Grand Cayman, in Hawaii. They've never spent more than a few days apart. Maddie recently heard that UI sororities like to separate girls who know each other well. Apparently, the point of Greek life is to make new friends, not cling to old ones. Here, in the auditorium, Maddie waits to learn if A Phi will choose Kaylee over her. It's a daunting moment as the clock ticks on. 20 seconds to go. The hundreds of freshman girls in the auditorium count down together. 10 seconds, 5 seconds, 4, 3, 2. Maddie and Kaylee tear open their envelopes. There are screams all around, women sobbing and running. Maddie's eyes blur with tears. She didn't make A Phi, but Kaylee did. The slip of paper in Maddie's envelope tells her she's been picked by Pi Beta Phi, known as Pi Phi, a perfectly respectable sorority, but not generally considered a top house on campus. Within seconds, there's a stampede for the exit as the women race out to the lawn to find their new sorority sisters standing out there under the signs. Here, now, isn't the time to say goodbye, but for Maddie and Kaylee, it's an ending, and it's a beginning. Chapter 2, Moscow, Idaho, August 20th, 2019. Maddie's a talented photographer and she's done some modeling, so she knows how to make her Instagram look seductive. The Pi Phi sisters want to build up their house's reputation so they can be more competitive with the top ones like AFI. Maddie does her part, creating a scene befitting a Disney movie. 7 beaming modern-day Cinderellas, Maddie among them, pose on the steps of the Pi Phi sorority house in matching white tank tops. The 4 older sisters have on matching pink miniskirts, and the 3 younger girls wear matching denim shorts. The archway behind them is covered with pink balloons. Maddie captions it, "I ran home. Pi Beta Phi UI." Kaylee comments, "That's my best friend. I love you so much. For life, baby." Of course, Kaylee knows how disappointed Maddie is, and she hurts because Maddie is hurting. Showing wisdom beyond their years, the friends accept the idea that widening their respective social circles will be good for both of them. In other words, they'll play the game of Greek life. Kaylee can't fail to express her own unmitigated joy about her acceptance into AFI, which is why she posts a photo of herself smiling with 2 new sorority sisters in front of the AFI house with the caption, "What Flo Rida said, welcome to my house," referencing the rapper's 2015 hit, My House. Maddie comments, "So happy for you, bestie." Their public Instagrams, TikToks, and Snapchats tell the story of their growing closeness with their new sisters and new best friends. Privately, Kaylee and Maddie remain as tight as ever, quietly maintaining their lifelong bond in real life, as the expression goes. Maddie's posts reflect her new friendship with sorority sister Sophia Whitehead, who is in the year above her, and Ashlyn Couch, who, like her, is from Coeur d'Alene. Kaylee posts show weekend activities, attending U of I football games on campus, traveling to Seattle with her AFI sorority sisters, and nuzzling her boyfriend, Jack DeCour. What they don't post is pictures with each other. The two keep up the illusion of separateness well into the next semester, when the balloon of unreality surrounding them is abruptly pierced. In March 2020, COVID strikes. Chapter 3, Rathdrum, Idaho, March 2020. At the end of spring break, Kaylee and Maddie both receive emails containing the same instructions. Don't come back to the sorority house. School is going remote. The girls are home in Rathdrum and the neighboring town of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and for them, it's like old times. They have each other, and given the stress surrounding the virus, they decide that pretense, even on social media, is no longer important. The day after Maddie's birthday, May 25th, Maddie May Day, Kaylee posts the first Instagram photo of the 2 best friends together since their arrival at UI. The 2 of them are hugging, wearing pretty summer dresses, standing by the lake. "The easiest person to celebrate," Kaylee writes. "Here's to you, my sweet Maddie May." Later that summer, Kaylee gives Maddie a shout out. "At Maddie Mogan, thanks for always being my personal photographer." It's a source of pride to Kaylee that Maddie has been asked to run the official Instagram account for the Pi Phis. It's a huge honor. It's also an irony. Maddie, initially disappointed to be joining Pi Beta Phi, is now responsible for attracting recruits and making the house look as appealing as AFI. She's good at this. Thanks to her pretty pictures, despite the isolation of COVID, the number of freshman women interested in joining is climbing. Few people in the Gonsalves family think COVID is the big deal that UI administrators believe it is. The Gonsalves children have been raised not to trust the government or institutions. They are libertarians. They live to bet on themselves. Kaylee's dad, Steve, works in IT at the hospital in Coeur d'Alene, an hour and a half north of Moscow. Over dinners at home, he tells his family that the only people who are dying in the hospital are those who have pre-existing conditions. Mostly, they're obese. He thinks the university is making a mistake not letting the kids back. And so does Kaylee. As the weeks stretch on, her frustration goes. Paying to take college classes over Zoom is bad enough, but bills keep coming in from AFI. She's livid that she and her AFI sisters are paying live-in dues for a house that they're not even allowed to occupy. Following orders unquestioningly is not a Gonsalves thing to do. So Kaylee queries the chapter president. Why are they paying for nothing? If they can't get some of that money returned, Kaylee says, she doesn't want to go back to the house in the fall. The rules are the rules, the president tells Kaylee. The house won't negotiate, especially with a new sister. None of the sisters can move out of the house until they're juniors and have accumulated a certain number of service points. Even then, the AFI admins add another hurdle. Sisters need to pay for both living in and living out. So in late August, Kaylee's stuck returning to the AFI house in its litany over COVID health and safety protocols. Kaylee doesn't want to do the physical distancing or the regular testing or the mandatory quarantine procedures, not any of it. But she's Kaylee, so she faces the rest head on, posting, "Now let's get back to it." This year, the girls who are rushing sororities have their smiles hidden behind masks. Coffee meetings are held on Zoom. Hugging is not allowed. Still, Kaylee takes a liking to two of the freshmen. Emma Tiger, a beautiful brunette from Vancouver, Washington, whose soccer career was sidelined by an injury, and Jaden Anderson, a blonde from Spokane. One of the most important rituals among sorority sisters is choosing bigs and littles. A big mentors her chosen little through college, academically and socially. Emma and Jaden are eager to become Kaylee's littles, partly because of her extraordinary enthusiasm and can-do attitude. When Kaylee hears there might be an in-house quarantine one weekend, she whisks Emma and Jaden off home with her to Coeur d'Alene. She takes them shopping, to concerts, for drinks, to coffee. She makes them baskets of goodies. She also was a girl you don't mess with, Emma recalled. Nobody would ever say a bad word about me in front of her because she was not okay with it. If there was some guy that was being rude to me at a party, Kaylee was the first one to say something to him. On Big Little Night in October, Kaylee surprises the two by waiting for them, shrouded in pink wrapping paper, in the parking lot by a large off-campus apartment building known as the Whites. When the two freshmen find Kaylee and unwrap her, their screams of delight echo several blocks away. At this point, the two younger girls are still caught up in the excitement and honor of being accepted into AFI. They don't yet know about the pressure that comes with being in the pretty girl's house. Darker times are just around the corner. And that is the prologue and chapters 1 through 3. We're going to stop there and we will start chapter 4. Later, I'll record chapter 4 and so on. And that's what we have for you today. Do something nice for yourself today. Be kind, but more importantly, be kind to your dog. Bye, guys.